What is up, Ramily? Welcome to another edition of Between the Horns, presented by your Southern California Toyota dealers. I'm not JB Long, I'm Erica Tamposi, aka Ricky Hollywood, and it's a little quieter around the NFL this week as teams cut down their roster to 53 players before the start of the regular season. The Rams made their cuts as well, which we will go over, but first, I want to introduce you to my lovely panel for today. We've got former NFL running back and Rams color analyst, Maurice Jones-Drew, MJD. Hello, hello.
Erica, you forgot to mention CEO and treasurer of the Ramily organization, ENT. ENT.
Okay. Yeah, we gotta work on that name.
We don't want to throw INTs.
Yeah, we don't want that at all. I also have with me today Super Bowl champion and Rams sideline reporter DeMarco Farr. What
happened? You called me lovely. I like it. Lovely panel. I haven't been called lovely ever.
You are lovely. You are lovely. And last, but definitely not least, she is, and I am biased, my favorite beat reporter for the Rams from The Athletic. It is Jourdan Rodrigue. Jourdan, what is up?
Hey, so happy to be here with you. I'm a big Ricky Hollywood fan. Big fan of, I agree, this lovely panel as well. So appreciate being
Oh my God, yes, absolutely. Super excited today. You guys, it's September 1st, okay? The season starts next week. But I still have one huge lingering question. Is it too early to start hanging up Halloween and fall decorations?
No. God,
it's
no.
September, right?
Yeah.
September 1st.
Oh, we're in fall. Fall now.
We're in the wheelhouse. Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Jourdan, I feel like you're judging. I'm getting Jourdan
a little bit. Just a little bit. A little bit. But if there's candy, I'm in. But other than that,
I don't know. I feel like it's like spooky season, but
we'll keep your Christmas tree up till March. Come on.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're down to the 53-man roster. Let's sort of go through this for people that might not be aware of what has happened in the last, feels like a whirlwind for the last 24 hours. So let's start with the quarterback position. The Rams keep 3 QBs for a second season in a row. And Jourdan, I want to toss to you first because I know you were talking about it a lot for your podcast as well. What do you feel about this overall? And, what is the benefit to having a 3-deep QB room?
Well, especially because they're both lower cost quarterbacks to have backing up Matthew Stafford. For me, I understand the process. It's different for every team in terms of what they want to do and whether people externally agree or disagree with the Rams' own process. The way that they do it makes sense for.
Definitely. How about you, MJD?
In that they run a lot. And so between the two of them, not just picking up defenses week over week and getting the defense on the other side as live a rep as they possibly can through a week of competitive work, not just sort of above the neck install that sometimes scout teams have done historically. They're doing live work against this defense. And it's really important, too, to have these guys who can not only do that and handle it and give this top 5 probably, if not top 3 heading into this year defense, the work that they need to do throughout the week against a variety of different offenses, but also a variety of different quarterbacks. They're going to really need to compete in a live setting against Bryce Perkins, the quarterbacks that they're going to see this year, including coming up right away and Josh Allen. Bryce Perkins is able to give them the looks they need to understand how he can move and to understand how hard he is to take down. And I think that is a lot of the prioritization. You always hear about the backup quarterback being like the emergency option in case something worst case scenario happens. On this team, they've been, knock on wood, remarkably lucky with how consistently their quarterbacks have been durable. So they've reprioritized that position into how can we get the most efficient work out of this position, out of these two roster spots throughout the entire week, instead of just operating in the outliers, which is a worst case scenario.
Yeah, Jourdan, I would completely agree with you. When I started to look at kind of why the Rams kept 3 quarterbacks and what Perkins did in the preseason, using his legs and improvising, I kind of thought, like, why would you let that go, right? You have Kyler Murray in your division. You have Trey Lance in your division. And again, your rival in the Niners that we know Trey Lance has struggled throughout the preseason throwing the football, but what does he do well? He runs. So Perkins can get that defense set up. And then on the other side is this. I love the fact that Sean McVay, if he has to go with Wolford, can go back to the Bible of playbook of 2018, right, where it's a lot of play action pass, turn around, get the ball out quick. And then you can run a 2-quarterback system if you want to keep Perkins up. Let's knock on wood and say Stafford, this is just hypothetical here, but you could then come with Perkins on that red zone offense, right, where they ran the read option, and it forces defenses to have to do other things. But I think you hit it right on the head there, Jourdan, when you talked about getting your defense prepared and ready for other teams. Yes, the Rams are thinking, I think, a little further out than other teams normally do when you talk about your 53. And the other part that I love about the Rams is they keep their 53, right? They keep their guys in-house. You don't always see them go out and get other guys if they don't know them. So it's important, and it's important to keep that nucleus of that locker room going and those guys that are familiar with each other.
Definitely. So how about some draft picks who are poised to have a role on game day? Okay, so DK and Kobe Durant, they shined in training camp, and they showed what they had in the preseason. How much of a role, DeMarco, do you see them having on this Rams defense during the season?
Wow, great question. I love the DK acquisition or the fact that he, showed his stuff and has become part of the two deep. Let's just go ahead and say that. It all depends on, what Troy Hill, what Jalen Ramsey give you if they can stay healthy. But I would think that Kendrick, Durant are going to be guys that show out immediately. Rush East is a guy I'm glad that's still on the team. Kier Thomas, another guy that has a chance to be in that rotation. But I mean, it's on offense. You saw this when he started taking reps with the offense. Kyron Williams is going to be a big part of this offense. Now, how much, I don't know. Depends on Cam Akers, depends on Darrell Henderson in front of him. But Kyron Williams will put his stamp or at least have something to say about this offense. And you can tell they like him. You can tell there's going to be a plan for him. We talked about this in camp, and especially when they got near the Bengals. I think he's a great zone runner. He really is. He's very compact, low to the ground. He's tough to pick up for those linebackers coming over the top. You get caught in the trash, and out the back door he goes. And if you try to, defense him with, say, 3 backers or what have you, the guy can just absolutely murder you out of the backfield. So I would say Kyron Williams, more so than anybody on defense, will probably have the biggest impact on this football team of anybody that was drafted this past season.
Yeah, he sees the wide zone stuff really well. I noticed this in Cincinnati when they were doing the live reps, and Kyron was getting the spot with the ones because Cam and Darrell weren't participating. And he sees the perimeter so well that wide zone catch and run stuff that we know Sean McVay loves and has sort of wanting to implement a little bit more into this offense in complement to the outside zone and the wide zone stuff he already does. And then some of the power stuff that they introduced last year as well. It just, a player like Kyron gives them more dimension, I think, to their run game. And that's not to take anything away from Cam and Darrell. I think they both do that very well as well. But having a guy in the wings as Kyron Williams, a healthy Kyron Williams is, I think does help them a lot in that dimensionality that they're kind of going for with that running backs group.
I love him. I'd rather have a healthy Cam Akers, though.
Well, I was going to, if we're going to talk RBs, I mean, first of all, Sean, thank you for drafting and giving the short RB an opportunity to showcase his abilities. I mean, let's not just overlook that. But I think, again, when you talk about some of the rookies and some of the things, Kyron, you're right, DeMarco is going to have a big impact. And partly is because of his abilities, right? His ability to pick up the blitz and pass protection, what he did awesome at Notre Dame. You heard Sean talk about what Notre Dame did in college kind of translates to what the Rams do here in the NFL. So you have that aspect, but then it's the competition in that running back room that's going to force these guys to all get better. Cam Akers was banged up last year, obviously with the Achilles, comes back, but he wasn't satisfied. DeMarco, we talked to him in OTAs about that. Darrell Henderson is still there nipping at his heels to go. And now you add another piece to the puzzle. When these guys can all go out there, and don't be surprised if we see 2 running backs on the field at one time, they can be very creative. So I'm really excited to see what he's able to do to help this running game and help this team get back to where they want to get to.
Which one's blocking? 2 running backs.
Both.
They're both chipping. They're both chipping and
we're
going.
we're out at wide receiver.
Receiver. They're in empty. They're chipping, and then they're going. Yeah.
Exactly.
And also, you guys,
I know he's not blocking.
You guys know this. Cam Akers might be one of the most fired up individuals I've ever met. Like, this dude is ready to go. He's ready to go.
Keep your body together, man. We need you 17 weeks plus. Come on.
Absolutely. And Kyron was so fast with the broken foot injury that he was coming off of. I was blown away at watching him at training camp, which was crazy to see. Okay, so let's talk Lance got a McCutcheon all. Okay, Lance McCutcheon.
What?
Right? Lance
What did you
McCutcheon
say?
got a catch all.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you. So he was an unlikely candidate to make the team before the preseason. But the questions, regarding the availability of Van Jefferson to start the season and also Lance's stellar performance in the preseason, okay? Let me just spell it out for you. Lance McCutcheon balled out, you guys, okay? And he was rewarded for it. Sean McVay and Les and the team were like, we cannot let this guy go to waivers because I really, truly feel that someone would have picked him up. And Jourdan, I'd love your insight on this. Is he someone, do you think, that can be a factor on game day for the Rams?
Long term, yes. Short term, I don't think he's going to be getting one of their active jerseys in the shortest term. And I don't say that as any sort of criticism of his skill set. I think we all saw the highest compliment I could pay Lance McCutcheon is, and I almost said Lance McCutcheon because that's the thing I've seen on Twitter this entire time. But the highest compliment I can give him is that he didn't look like he belonged out there in the preseason. And if you are understanding of the way that Sean McVay runs his preseason, that's the highest compliment a player could probably receive. But he also, through the entirety of training camp, he was only working with the third team offense. And he wasn't doing any of the real installs, and he wasn't doing any of the, the sort of onboarding at that high speed that the offense has to do during that time of year. He was learning the offense for the first time and not getting snaps with the quarterback that eventually we could probably see him playing with in Matthew Stafford. His first catch from John Wolford happened in the preseason game in week 2. That was the first throw that John Wolford ever threw to him through that entire period. So for me, it's not so much describing his skill set. I think his fit long-term with this group is clear. But in the shorter term, I do think he's just got some catching up to do in terms of what is actually expected. And also they're game planning right now. So if you already have to lay that foundation of what this offense is and start to get those reps that maybe you missed out on in training camp because of the crowded room of receivers that they're flowing in with the first team, you have to understand it's just going to take some time. I do think you're going to see really big things from him in the long term, but in the short term, there's a lot of other receivers that just simply know this offense better than he does at this time.
Well, Jourdan, I'll piggyback and say this. The way if he wants to get on the field early, it's going to have to be special teams. And that's normally built by safeties, linebackers, tight end types. And so he's going to have to showcase his ability tackling. Now, let me say this. And this is one of the things, again, we talk about the Rams all the time, how they don't play their starters. But McCutcheon got an opportunity and took advantage of it. Right? Mm-hmm. You're playing with the backups. You're not getting a lot of reps in practice. You get all the game reps, and he's able to dominate week after week after week. He dominated in the joint practices with the Bengals. He showed up throughout training camp. And I got a chance to talk to a good friend of mine, Greg Olson, who's an offensive assistant, before preseason week 1. I was like, who's the guy that you're looking at? He was like, Lance McCutcheon is going to ball out. Like, he's one of the top guys. Trey Ragas is another guy that he talked about as well. But week 1, right away, preseason game 1, just lights it up. And I'm like, Greg, how'd you know this? He was like, dude, he's going against Jalen Ramsey and all these guys week after week after week, and he's making plays. He's catching the ball. So we're excited to kind of see what he does. And you take advantage of that opportunity, and it forces the team's hand, right? The team's like, look, we have to cut a draft pick, right? Because we don't want to put this guy on waivers and lose him to someone else. So I think, Jourdan, you're exactly right. Down the road on offense, yes. But in the short term, he needs to figure out how to tackle, how to cover kicks, how to block on kickoff return, and then you'll get on the field and get a jersey.
That's it.
No. It's like special teams, it's like your core group of special teamers. That's your most important guys. I love this group of special teamers. If he wants to fit in, he's going to have to do more because it tests your all-around game, not just being a receiver. You're going to have to be a DB at one point. You're going to have to be a safety. You're going to have to be a guy that carries the football, tackle the football, do everything until you can earn a spot at your natural spot at wide receiver. But, it's funny watching him go through preseason. Clearly, there were times when I thought he was the best player on the field. Anybody want to doubt that? Both sides, where this guy is different from everyone else. So he should dominate. Now, you've earned a spot here. Now, like Jourdan said, to get into that too deep to where you're actually being a part of the game plan, number one, you're going to have to study your butt off. Number two, we talked about special teams. Number three, let's see if you can do it when everybody else on the field is as good or better than you. That's what separates guys that go home from guys that make the club. So, yeah, he's big, he's strong, he's fast, and he's a great route runner, especially against vanilla defenses. Now let's see what happens when you're facing those more intricate schemes and your quarterback doesn't have a whole lot of time and you've got to know your outlets and your hot routes and your checks. But I was fascinated. I thought he absolutely was the MVP of preseason. I hate even saying that, but clearly there were times when McCutcheon was the best player on the field. So those guys you don't send home. Those are the guys you keep.
The move he pulled against Stingley in Houston, that catch, that was a very heady, very aware of technique, very aware of the technique the defensive back has to play and how you can win your leverage. That's why I think, he's got that sort of acumen that you're talking about in terms of studying. Midway through the season, I can see the hashtag now, guys. Hashtag let Lance McCutcheon, right? Am I right? Am I right?
I don't know. We let Russ cook and it wasn't good. So let's not use that one anymore. And I'll let me add just a little bit more to it. Jourdan, you talked about that technique. He got into the blind side of the DB where the DB couldn't see him, was able to cross his face. Very savvy. But the other part is this. We talked about Perkins helping out and John Wolford helping out the defense. Now you have Lance McCutcheon, who is going to play the Deebo Samuel, who's going to play the DK Metcalf, is going to play the DeAndre Hopkins or the other guys, the Stephon Diggs, week after week after week. And the more talents you have that can go against Jalen and these other guys will prepare your defense. So it's always you're saying, I don't want to cut good players because good players are going to help us be better, not only on the offensive side, but on the defensive side as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Such a player to root for, too. Watching his mic'd up, you see Cooper Kupp on the side talking to him about his, late throw down towards the end zone at the end there. And he's talking to himself. He's like, I don't even know if I'm still mic'd up. Or can you even hear me? I mean, if you guys haven't checked that out yet, definitely go watch it.
Yeah.
Because he's just like an all-around, seems like just such a guy that I want to root for. And it was really exciting to see. Okay,
I love everything you do. Now go be a gunner.
Okay, before we wrap out of here, do you guys have any questions that you feel still need to be answered? Is there a team, a question surrounding this team that you feel we still need to talk about?
I think I would say this. I still think outside linebacker, you're still trying to figure that position out opposite of Leonard Floyd. Thomas did an awesome job, right? But can you count on him week after week after week? I still want to see kind of what they do on the outside of that. And there's always going to be questions, I think, as the season goes on, and they'll be answered through different challenges. But that outside linebacker opposite of Leonard Floyd is kind of the one I'm keeping my eye on.
Yeah, I agree, actually, 100%. That's my biggest question. It has been my biggest question since, last March about, right? And I think it's interesting because this team is going to have such a slate of quarterbacks ahead post-November 1st, right? Post-trade deadline. And so to me, that's circled on the calendar, right? In terms of you have to know what you don't know at that moment. That's going to be the biggest decision moving forward for this team is what happens after that point. You're facing Justin Herbert, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, Derek Carr. I'm forgetting Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes. You're facing everybody who's not Josh Allen, essentially. And you might face Josh Allen in the postseason. So I think the way that they get pressure, first of all, because I believe this is a group, this is a savvy group. I believe they will find some creative ways to get pressure. The ways that they get pressure, and then whether or not those tactics are sustainable through the entire season, that's the biggest question to me.
I'm right there. You still have Aaron. Floyd, I think, is
they're all right, I guess. Yeah.
You still have Aaron. I mean, there's still things. I remember talking with Raheem Morris. I fumbled this the last time we did Between the Horns. I said, Coach, how you doing? He smiled and said, man, how you think I'm doing? I got Jalen Ramsey and I've got Aaron Donald. He's right. He does. There's ways to manufacture pressure. Plus, you've got a guy that always wins. Maurice, I think you know what I'm about to say, what my biggest question mark is. And outside of this top 100 stuff and Cooper Kupp and Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald, let's argue if he's the best or number 2 to Brady. The most important person on this football team is Matthew Stafford. And my question is, can you keep him upright? Can you protect him? Joseph, there is no There's no Andrew Whitworth. Joseph Noteboom is a guy that's been the understudy. I think he's ready for prime time, but he's going to take his beats. We talked about this in Cincinnati, right? That was a pretty good pass rush coming at him. So when you talk about quarterbacks you're going to face coming up, definite. There's some great guys. There's also some great pass rushers coming up on both sides that both tackles are going to have to worry about. So it doesn't matter about your top 100. It doesn't matter about anything we talked about if you cannot protect Matthew Stafford. So to me, until we get to next Thursday, we're not going to know. But until that's answered, that will be a question mark for me.
Definitely. That O-line is definitely something to watch, and having Witt in the booth for these preseason games has been so eye-opening and such an incredible opportunity. But it made me miss his presence out on that O-line even more. And so I definitely think we are going to feel it. But I think, like what you said, DeMarco, that I think there are some players that are ready to step up. Riley Dixon's replacing Johnny Hecker at punter. That's going to be interesting to watch. DeMarco, you and I were talking about Troy Hill off air before we started. You know, they added Bobby Wagner. We've already touched on the defense, so I won't go into that. I'm just interested to see how some of these players contribute and what this, defense will look like going forward. But I'm excited about it. Okay, you guys, that does it. I want to thank you, MJD, DeMarco, Jourdan. I am Erica Tamposi, and thank you for tuning in to this edition of Between the Horns, presented by your Southern California Toyota dealers. We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.
See you soon.